All right, welcome. Hey there. Thanks for joining in to this week's episode of Bloomerang TV. My name is Steven. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Bloomerang. And today I'm joined by our guest, Caity Craver. She is the CEO over at DonorTrends. Hey there, Caity. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me, Steven.
Yeah, thanks for being here. This will be fun. So what is DonorTrends for some folks who maybe aren't familiar with your organization?
Sure. Before I talk about what DonorTrends does, I want to talk about really why DonorTrends was built. And DonorTrends was built, and Bloomerang has produced an incredible infographic about this point exactly. So when we think about fundraising, we think about donor retention or attrition, right? So how much money are we losing? And the facts are astounding. So when we talk about $1, for every dollar you're going to make this year, you're going to lose 60 cents of that dollar. Gone.
Man, that's bad.
Right? Right. And so the time is now to think about how do we protect the bottom line in a different way, right? How can we grow this 40 cents of every dollar that we're saving year over year? How can we get more of this dollar, right?
Yeah.
So how can we improve that? And that is by focusing on real fundraising metrics and developing strategies to improve that. And that's why DonorTrends is here. Let's take the data that nonprofits have spent years and years and years collecting and develop intelligence around that data to raise more money. So DonorTrends works alongside nonprofits of all sizes to use their data more intelligently.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
So we're recording this on July 8th. It's the first weekend, or the first full week after the July 4th holiday. I think everyone's a little groggy. It seems kind of quiet in the nonprofit sector, and it seems like we're kind of in that summer doldrum period. Yep. Would you agree with that kind of assessment?
Absolutely. You know, it's an exciting time for many organizations because for those fiscal year ends that were June 30th close, it's a big time. You know, everybody has FY15 budget ready to spend, and it is the quiet before the year-end storm, right? So we have organizations that we're working with that are already building their plans for August, September, October campaigns. But now is the time when your colleagues are kind of on vacation and emails a little bit slower. Now is the time that we can spend to sit back, reflect on our FY15 plans and say, how can we use this kind of month that's going to be a little bit more quiet to think about our fundraising strategies to get more of that dollar, right?
So what should people be doing, in your opinion, this month that'll really set the tone for that end of the year stuff that's coming down?
Sure, and I think holistically, when we look at our fundraising kind of programs, the first thing that we always say at DonorTrends is to know your numbers. So I know that a lot of organizations spend a lot of money on analytics and get a lot of data tabs and spreadsheets coming in that have a lot of numbers and percentages, but have they sat there and critically thought about the fundraising metrics that matter and what that means for their overall fundraising strategies and file growth? So since we're going to stick to kind of like 4 ways to think about your program in a different like use this summertime in a different way, let's identify 4 metrics that matter the most. So I think Bloomerang would agree that retention is a priority. Right? If we want to keep more of this dollar, we have to figure out how to hold on to either more donors or upgrade those donors. So know your numbers, right? We need to understand retention. How many existing donors are you retaining? How many new donors are you retaining? That number is an easy number to calculate, but you need to know what we call kind of the leaky bucket, right? Another visual I'll hold up here is how many donors are you feeding into the bucket, how many donors are coming out of the bucket, and more importantly, what is that costing your organization? If you do not know the cost of attrition, we can help you calculate it immediately. It's important that you know that for your fundraising strategies, because if you don't know how much money attrition is costing your organization, then as marketers, we don't know how much to spend to fix the problem. So on the donor file side, the 2 metrics that matter the most, new donor retention, existing donor retention, and that leads to your overall kind of growth score, how much your file is growing or shrinking. On
so
the revenue,
you kind of look back on how you did, but what about looking forward to those challenges coming up? Is that equally important?
Absolutely. And just like when you go into the doctor's office or the ER, right, the first thing is going to take your vital signs. So maybe you don't have a retention problem, right? Maybe you have a donor value problem. So you need to analyze your file performance, figure out your retention metrics, and then also look on the value side. Look at lifetime value and look at either revenue per donor or average gift to see how well you're increasing donor value. And then from there, identify the challenge areas on the file, right? So how can we build these strategic plans year over year if we really don't know where the challenge areas are? Right? Are you having a harder time converting second gifts? And if so, what is the forward-thinking plan to convert more donors? And so that's what we recommend. First, knowing your numbers, and then let's develop an action strategy to address those areas of concern.
All right, so let's talk about that strategy. So you do a good job maybe in the first couple weeks or a few weeks here in July, and you really know what you need to work on, and now it's time to put that plan together. How should people go about formalizing that strategy?
Sure. So we use a tool called an objective tree that you first define your objective. So let's say to increase net revenue, right? That's kind of a common objective of all nonprofits. And then you build the tree down from there, asking yourself how on every layer. So how are we going to improve net revenue? We're going to raise more money. We're going to decrease cost. How are we going to raise more money? And as you build this plan down, and it's a very simple tool, I can send you a template afterwards so you can see how some of these trees build themselves for anybody in the audience out there that's interested. But at the end of it, at the base of the tree, you have very defined goals and benchmarks. So to improve revenue, we're going to increase average gift by $4, right? Where the action strategy becomes important, it's understanding at the end of this decision tree, what does that mean to the bottom line, right? So we're passionate at DonorTrends to say, we call it moving the metric, right? So how, if we move the retention metric by 2 percentage points, what does that mean to the overall bottom line? So for this organization, it's more than $1 million in additional annual gross revenue if they can just improve retention from 48 to 59 or 51%. Right? It's a nominal kind of moving of the metric, but it's laying out that strategy to think, what do I need to improve and how am I going to get there?
Cool. So, you've come up with a strategy, you fill out your tree, you got all your things in place. Now it's time to execute, right? So how do you kind of, rally your troops and assign all those tasks to all the people in your organization? What advice would you give for people who it's time to actually do these things and all the things you're talking about?
Sure, I'd say keep it to 3 things or less, right? I think as fundraisers, there's so many different things that we can try to improve.
Right.
Reactivation rates, acquisition rates, retention rates, reduced costs, and I think it becomes overwhelming when fundraisers are under very, very tight budgets. Every year they're asked to improve net revenue, which means they have to cut back on investment programs and try to really kind of burn and churn these house files. And so I'd say let's try to 3 or fewer things that you want to accomplish for the year, and then laser focus on moving those metrics. And doing that's going to require a different type of mindset, thinking about your fundraising program in a different way. From my vantage, we start by thinking about audience selection and the data process in a different way. Right? So if we're casting the same costly wide net to the same donors, expecting different results, that's not going to happen. You are not going to raise more money. We have to think about targeting our donors in a different way to influence whatever type of donor behavior we're trying to influence. But again, my recommendation would be to focus on, 1, 2, maybe 3 things that you can accomplish, and then get your whole team on board with here are the goals and here's how we're going to benchmark that success.
Yeah, don't overload yourself, because it seems like if you go through the exercise that you recommend here, they're going to come up with 50 things you need to work on, and then you just get really discouraged and you get this paralysis because you don't want to tackle them all.
Exactly. It becomes overwhelming, and that's why understanding what it means to the bottom line is imperative to marketers, fundraisers, right? So if we know that improving retention is going to raise $1 million more, and improving reactivation is only going to raise $50,000 more dollars, then it's a better use of internal resources and marketing budget to focus on moving the retention metric.
Right. I know we're kind of talking about this in the context of, okay, it's midsummer, or maybe the fiscal year is over, but should people go through this kind of exercise more than once a year? What other times of year or circumstances do you think they should do an exercise like this, if not, the exact one that you recommend?
I think laying out a strategic plan annually. It starts with an annual plan, and then revisiting that once a quarter to check in with the team. Where are we with this plan? Where are we on track to accomplish this holistic annual plan? But a quarterly check-in. Running the metrics and the numbers in fundraising really doesn't need to be done more than once a year, depending on the metrics that you're running. Some organizations look at their numbers quarterly, but because on average, a donor gives maybe 1.7 gifts a year, really looking at the whole annual plan and then checking in quarter by quarter to ensure that your campaign level strategy is supporting your overall fundraising objectives.
That makes sense. Well, I know we're running out of time, and I want to give you the last word. I know, yes, it's fun, isn't it?
That was fun, and I feel like it was so, this is summertime. I wanted to have some kind of fun background and maybe some tropical drinks or something. But
no, it looks good. It's good.
Yeah, yeah, this looks great.
So if you were going to talk to a nonprofit, maybe a smaller nonprofit, they had a good first 6 months. They're feeling pretty good. What's one piece of advice? What is one thing you would tell them that they need to do in July?
I'd say know your numbers. If you don't know your numbers, get them. It takes less than a week to produce fundraising vital signs. And that way you will empirically know, here's where we are today, and here's our goals to get wherever we're trying to go tomorrow.
Perfect. Cool. Caity, this was awesome. Thanks for hanging out with us for a little while.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the invitation. Thanks, everyone.
All right, we will catch you on next week's episode. Thanks for watching and tuning in. We will see you next time. Bye now.
Bye, Stephen. Thank you.